Hey everybody, this is Chris, MTGO's Rec Start, and I'm back for this week's installment of the Show and Tell series, the ongoing audio-video deck tech series that takes a look at the decks of the Legacy Tribal Wars format as they are played every week in the Tribal Apocalypse Player Run event. And the last couple of weeks have been marathons. This week is going to be very short. I was sent some replays. Unfortunately, I was sent them in Camtasia, which I may have a nice Magic collection, but I don't have a $300 piece of video editing software to play that. And supposedly you can extract that and view it as an AVI file. However, none of the media players that I own had the codec to play a TSC2, so there was no go on the video replays this week. And again, I'm 34 years old. It's kind of a miracle that I can even do this. So trying to keep up with that kind of stuff is way beyond, there might have been a time in my life when I could, but that's not happening anymore. If anyone does have a solution to that problem, let me know. But in the future, if you send me video files, if you could please, I know there's a way in Camtasia to convert them to .avi, just something in a codec that I might have. Again, I appreciate anything I get sent, but if there's a way to do that, please do that for me. I'm running Cam Studio here, nothing fancy. So, anyways, let's get to. We're just going to have a couple of deck techs this week. We're going to start off the first and second place decks. The undefeated decks were Goblins and Reanimators. So nothing too awful interesting there. Again, stuff we've covered and seen before. So I went down to the one-loss decks and I found a couple of interesting decks. And we're going to start with this Spirit Storm deck by Just Cancelled, and it's red-blue, and the blue is kind of an odd splash to my mind, but let's take a look at the choices here. He's got Rite of Flame, Desperate Ritual, and Seething Song, as well as a full set of each of the Spirit Guides, which is certainly one of the things you could go to Spirits for. Gets you a lot of fast mana, as well as Chrome Mox here. And that allows him to try to build up to a big turn on Storm and play a big Empty the Warrens and try to win the game that way, potentially a pretty big one as early as turn 1. Of course, that plan can run afoul of things such as Pyroclasm, Fire Spout sort of effects, but otherwise has a pretty good chance of winning. Now, what he doesn't have, because the deck can't really support it and still run 20 creatures, is all the cantrips and things that tend to get run in regular Storm decks. He can't necessarily rely on being able to just find one of these Empty the Warrens with cantrips on his big turn. So if he doesn't have the Empty the Warrens in hand, his backup plan is, what am I going to do with a lot of early mana if I don't have this? And some pretty good options here at the 5 slot. He's got Demigod of Revenge, not too bad, a 5-power hasty flyer, and of course when he comes in he brings back the other guys from the battlefield, and this was a pure tribal week, so there was no Swords to Plowshares or Path to Exile in the format. So if people might have been playing, say, Doomblade, this guy was going to dodge that, and even if they were playing Go for the Throat, Dismember, some better black options, nevertheless it's going to put him in your graveyard so you can get another one later, bring him back. So a good guy to ramp into early. Deus of Calamity, of course, you could just get him killed, but again, you were expecting a little less removal this week, and if this guy sticks and you get him out early, he can just completely lock out an opponent. Now, they can throw anything in front of it and start chump blocking it to save their lands until they get up to where they can put up a fight, but you're going to get a lot of advantage out of that guy early. I've looked at him in some other sort of fast mana variant decks that I might play in the future as a possible option. I think he's one of the best. Frostling is here, sort of a bad Mog fanatic in a sense, but he only costs 1, so he can up your Storm count, and he can pick off some little utility creatures if people were playing Elves or that sort of thing. He'd be very useful in those matchups. Fire is also pretty useful in the same sense. Now, Fire and Ice is one of my favorite spells of all time, so I'm not going to really deride its inclusion here, but at the same time, I don't know ice cantrips, which is true, and so I suppose there's something to that. But if what you really want is a cantrip, you would think you would either want to go all in with something like Manamorphose, which at least is mana neutral and draws you a card, or you might want to play something like Ponder or Brainstorm or Preordain, something like that that would maybe dig you towards the Empty the Warrens. So not really sure. I mean, again, this is a much better defensive card, whereas doing something like that is going a little bit more all in towards the Storm thing. But he's devoted so much space in this deck to it that it almost seems like maybe you ought to put a little bit in here to try to enable this a bit more. But again, I'm not entirely sure the thinking on Fire and Ice. Again, love the card. It's a good defensive option. Maybe he thought he just needed that. He needed a cantrip that had that ability rather than a cantrip that was just library manipulation. So. Anyways, I also like again, the Chrome Moxes here. He doesn't have anything else that uses blue, but exiling Fire and Ice with the Chrome Mox is one of the things I enjoy. You can cast either color off it, make your Chrome Mox a little more flexible. The mana base is pretty standard. The snow-covered mountains do not appear to have a particular purpose, but anyways, they're there. And of course, you've got all these rituals, and you're going to be dumping a bunch of stuff in your graveyard. Not, of course, the Spirit Guides, which do get exiled. But makes the Barbarian Rings a potential finisher there as well, since you are a pretty good chance to get to Threshold here. You got 6 fetch lands, and again, a Frostling that will end up in your graveyard, and a bunch of these rituals. So not too bad there. So anyways, I really like this deck. I wish I could have seen this one in action. Let's take a look at the other deck that I found interesting this week, which was, where are we going to find it? Down here. Alright, Golem Post by Nagarjuna. He also went 3-1 with this deck, and this is in many ways a straight-up 12-post build. He's got 4 Vesuva, 4 Cloud Post, 4 Glimmer Post. It's going green here, and Ancient Tomb he's also got in here to kind of speed things up a little bit. The Expedition map in Sylvan Scrying, pretty standard in 12-post decks. Lodestone Golem, if you can get an early one out, is quite nice, since everything in his deck, apart from the Sylvan Scrying, is going to be unaffected by this. The Neverknow's Disc is a nice board wipe, and of course All Is Dust does the same, and All Is Dust is one of the great incentives to playing this sort of deck. It's a one-sided board sweeper. Makes every player sacrifice the colored permanents he or she controls, so it gets around regeneration and indestructibility and things like that. So that, again, that's one of the other allures to play this type of deck. Solemn Simulacrum is nice as well, gives you a little bit of mana ramping. Golem Artisan, it's really nice to be able to give evasion, trample or haste or flying to one of your guys. To trample and flying, situationally very similar. You're just trying to get evasion on your guy. Brass Herald is kind of an interesting choice. He does act as sort of an adaptive automaton, gives you a lord for all your guys. Now, that's not the most powerful function in this deck, but he will also draw you into more of your fatties. So that's a solid reason to play him, and since he's in Tribe, that makes him all the better here. I don't necessarily like decks that play Brass Herald and Adaptive Automaton and things like that off Tribe, but if you are in Tribe, I do think that's a pretty solid choice. Sundering Titan is one of the things I can do with all of my mana. Not only is he a big old dude there, 7/10, he also, against people with advanced, fully powered mana bases, is going to be able to blow up a pretty good portion of their lands. People playing 3 or 4 colored, mana bases with original Masters Edition duels are going to get hit pretty hard by that guy. And Darksteel Colossus, he's only got 1 copy in here, and he isn't playing, any, like, Constructs decks will tutor this guy or Blightsteel Colossus up with Koldatha Forgemaster, for instance, and play him off Tribe. Of course, this is pure Tribal, so you got to play some big golems in here as finishers, and you can't argue with Darksteel Colossus. He's a good man there. Anyways, I really like this deck as well, and it was good enough to go 3-1, and I always like it when I see these artifact decks do well. We saw a Constructs deck played by Endless Nameless do pretty well earlier in the year that was based on Metalworker, And usually when you see these artifact decks, you want to go. This is probably the superior. The 12 post system is the superior mana system to Urzatron. Urzatron really only sees play like in Modern because you have the Cloud Post banning, but apart from that, 12 post tends to be the superior. We don't see anything in here like you could play Candelabra of Tawnos and things like that. But again, I think he's got a pretty good mana engine for what he's got. And probably the real advantage of this deck is having all of these, again, all his Dust and Nevernearl's Disc, giving him those reset buttons. But again, he can assemble a pretty big mana pretty quickly with Sylvan Sky and Expedition Map. So, anyways, that's going to be it for the week. And I encourage you to send me video files. Please send them in a format that a crusty old 34-year-old has a chance at watching, though, if you do. The Kamigawa Block Challenge is still unclaimed. Kara Zor-El gave it a shot with Mono Black, which I liked the idea. It gives you access to an awful lot of removal, which is decent, and I think that was one way to go. Makes your mana stable, but anyways, he could not win a game with it. So it does look like I succeeded in picking a challenge that was a little harder than the previous one. So maybe you'll have to really earn that copy of Sakashima's Students. So, anyways, thanks for joining me this week. Again, short week. Hopefully, we'll have more for you next week. Commander week. I'll try to take some video. Everybody's sending your videos. People loved the Commander week last time. Those videos were some of the most highly watched videos I ever put up on YouTube. So again, please send me anything you got on Commander Week. I'll be happy to take a look and feature whatever I can. So I will see you next week.